An off-duty deputy stands in a Houston cul-de-sac with his pistol drawn, and 40 feet away, sitting calmly on a manicured front lawn between two suburban houses, is a full-grown tiger. Before the patrol cars arrive, a man walks out, scoops the animal up, loads it into a white SUV, and drives away. No shots. No arrest that night. Just a tiger. Gone. That was May 2021, and it was not a one-off at all. Tigers keep turning up loose across Texas, and the usual explanation is that the state holds more tigers than survive anywhere in the wild today. That Houston tiger got a name: India, and a week-long manhunt, because after the SUV vanished, nobody knew where several hundred pounds of apex predator had gone in a city of more than 2 million people. For days, families in West Houston were told an adult tiger might be somewhere in their neighborhood, and there was no radio collar, no microchip anyone could ping, no way to track it. That's the part that should stop you. A tiger loose in a city is not a zoo animal that wandered off. It's a predator built to move at night, cover ground quietly, and go unseen. Dropped into a landscape of backyards and drainage ditches where a child could round a corner and meet it. When India finally surfaced, the animal was handed over and driven to a sanctuary in East Texas, unharmed. It's easy to file the whole thing under Texas being Texas, a viral clip, a strange afternoon. But the moment you stop treating it as a novelty and start asking how a tiger ends up on a lawn in the fourth largest city in America, the easy answer falls apart, and something stranger takes its place. Because India was not special. A few months earlier, on the other side of the state, a woman in San Antonio looked into her backyard and found a tiger that had jumped her fence. It had been lent out, essentially borrowed, so someone could show it off to family. During the deadly winter freeze that paralyzed Texas that same February, sheriff's deputies pulled a tiger named Elsa out of a bad situation and moved her to a ranch that takes in rescued exotics. Around the same stretch, a couple was arrested with a 13-week-old tiger cub and a bobcat living in their home. And those are only the incidents that made the news. The ones where an animal was seen, reported, photographed. Every one of them was already being kept somewhere before it surfaced. In a pen or a garage or a rented house, invisible right up until the day it wasn't. Pull the thread on any single one of these and you find the same knot underneath. The title promise is literally true. Tigers really do keep being spotted across Texas. The question is why here, and how many more are out there that nobody has spotted at all? And that is where the standard explanation cracks. Because the standard explanation is a number, and the number is a guess. You have probably heard it. There are more tigers in Texas, or in America, than are left in the wild. It gets repeated as settled fact. Here is the problem. There is no national registry of privately held tigers, no master list, no agency you can call that knows how many big cats live behind fences in the United States, let alone in one state. Even government officials, when pressed, say plainly that they don't know the real number. The widely quoted figures, 5,000, 7,000, even 10,000 nationwide, come from advocacy estimates, and they conflict with each other. The most careful headcount anyone has actually done, a 2016 census by the Feline Conservation Federation, found something closer to 2,300 tigers in the entire country, and only a few hundred of those outside professional facilities. By that count, Texas held under 200. So the range of serious estimates spans from a couple hundred to 10,000. And the honest answer is that no one knows. Part of why the numbers are so slippery is that a single operator can distort them overnight. At its peak, the Oklahoma Roadside Zoo, made famous by the Tiger King saga, claimed to hold more than 200 tigers by itself, bred on site, one facility swinging a state's entire count. When a handful of breeders can each hold dozens or hundreds, and none of them are required to report it, an estimate is all anyone will ever have. That uncertainty is not a footnote, it is the whole story. Sit with that for a second, because it inverts the usual fear. We assume the danger is that there are so many tigers. The real danger is that we can't count them. An animal that can kill a person is being kept, bred, and moved around a state, and the system that's supposed to track dangerous things simply does not have it on a list. So, before we talk about the trade that made this happen, understand what the trade actually produced. Not a known quantity, a blind spot. Now, the obvious answer does get something right, and it's worth saying clearly. The exotic pet trade is real. People genuinely do buy tigers, keep tigers, breed tigers, and Texas genuinely is one of the hottest spots in the country for it. If you wanted to explain merely why tigers exist in the state at all, you could stop there. Supply and demand, exotic status, money. That much is true, and it's the part everyone already believes. But it explains the presence of tigers. It does not explain the pattern, the escapes, the abandonments, the animals surfacing in backyards and empty houses, the sheer chaos of it. For that, you have to look at how the trade is built. Start with why Texas specifically. For years, the state had no meaningful statewide ban on owning a big cat. What it had instead was a patchwork. Under the state's approach to dangerous wild animals, the job of requiring registration, insurance, or caging standards was pushed down to individual counties and cities. Some enforced rules. Many enforced very little, and some had effectively none at all. That meant the same animal could be illegal to own in one county and completely unregulated a short drive away, with no one comparing notes across the line. So a person who wanted a tiger could often find a county with cheap land, a warm climate, plenty of privacy, and almost no one checking. There was no statewide inspector coming to look at the enclosure, no requirement that anyone even know the animal existed. That's not a loophole, that's an open door, and it concentrated supply exactly where oversight was thinnest, which is also exactly where a loose tiger is least likely to be caught before it reaches someone's yard. But the deepest mistake in the popular story is the word pet. It makes you picture an eccentric owner and a tiger lounging by a pool, a lifelong companion. That's not the engine. The engine is cubs. A tiger cub is a product. For roughly the first 8 to 12 weeks of its life, it is small, photogenic, and profitable. The centerpiece of paid photo sessions, cub petting attractions, and quick private sales. During that narrow window, a customer will pay to hold it, bottle feed it, and take a picture with it. And a single cub can generate a remarkable amount of cash before it outgrows the act. The math only works if the cubs never stop coming, so the business breeds constantly. Females are bred again and again to keep a supply of newborns in the pipeline. And cubs are often pulled from their mothers within days, so the mother cycles back into breeding faster and the babies stay hand-tamed for the cameras. The business isn't really built around keeping tigers. It's built around producing a steady stream of cubs and monetizing them fast, while they're still small enough to sit in a stranger's lap. Which means it isn't a collection of pets at all, it's a factory, and factories have output that has to go somewhere. And then biology arrives, right on schedule, and destroys the business model. A cub does not stay a cub. Within months, it's the size of a large dog, then bigger, and it keeps going. An adult tiger runs from 300 to well over 500 pounds. It's an obligate carnivore that needs something like 10 or more pounds of meat a day, every day. Secure caging built from steel and concrete that costs real money to build and maintain. And veterinary care almost no ordinary vet is equipped to provide. Feeding and housing one animal properly can run into thousands of dollars a year, and a tiger lives around 2 decades. So the true cost isn't a purchase price, it's a 20-year contract. And it is, at that point, fully capable of killing the person who raised it. Not out of malice, but because that is simply what a several hundred-pound predator's body does when it plays, or startles, or reacts. Handlers have been mauled and killed by tigers they raised from infancy and trusted completely. Somewhere around that 12-week mark, the animal crosses a line from asset to liability. The thing that was making money becomes a thing that costs money, indefinitely, and can put you in a hospital. Multiply that by every cub the factory has to produce to stay in business, and you can see the problem stacking up. So what happens to it? This is the part the pet framing hides completely. Those adults have to go somewhere, and there are only so many places. Some get resold cheap to the next owner who wants the status without understanding the cost, which just moves the problem down the line. Some get warehoused in backyard pens and half forgotten. Some get quietly handed off, dumped, or abandoned. And the one legitimate exit, an accredited sanctuary, is a bottleneck by design. There are only so many real sanctuaries, each can take only so many animals, and every tiger they accept is a lifetime commitment costing thousands of dollars a year until the animal dies of old age. A sanctuary that takes in 10 tigers can't take in 10 more the next month. So the escape valve is permanently near capacity while the factory upstream keeps producing. The San Antonio tiger lent out to impress a family, the animals rescued during a freeze, the cubs seized before it grew. None of them fit the image of a beloved exotic pet. They fit something colder. They are the surplus output of a pipeline that profits from the cub and has no plan for the tiger. The trade doesn't fill Texas with pets. It manufactures unwanted apex predators and leaves them scattered across the state with nowhere to go. Which finally explains the thing we started with, but not in the way you'd expect. Tigers keep being spotted across Texas, not because the state is swarming with them, but because the ones that exist are invisible until the instant they get out. Think about what that 2016 census implied and what the wild estimates couldn't confirm. The animals aren't on a list, and for a long time, federal rules made sure of it. The licensing was almost absurdly loose. So loose that a person could obtain a U.S. Department of Agriculture license, nominally meant for exhibiting small animals, gerbils and the like, and then use that same credential as cover to exhibit big cats. On top of that, a 1998 federal rule that required registration of purebred, subspecies pure tigers left the generic Mixed breed tigers, which are the vast majority, off the books entirely, free to be bred and moved across state lines with no paper trail at all. Roadside zoos became a kind of laundering system, a place where an unregistered animal could exist under a thin coat of legitimacy. And when oversight was cut back, it got worse fast. Federal investigations of animal welfare violations fell by more than 90% over just a few years in the late 2010s, and citations dropped alongside them. So the population didn't just go uncounted. It was structurally hidden, by rules that were written, or gutted, to keep it that way. Every tiger on a lawn is that hidden system, surfacing for 90 seconds before it disappears again. There's a further cruelty buried in this, and it lands on the animals themselves. Nearly all of these privately held American tigers are what specialists call generic tigers, mixed across subspecies, frequently inbred, with no documented lineage. Genetic studies of privately owned U.S. tigers have found exactly this: animals whose ancestry is a blur of subspecies that would never have met in the wild. That word generic is doing brutal work. It means these animals have no conservation value whatsoever. They can't be released into the wild, they don't belong to any managed breeding program, they can't be folded back into accredited zoos. Genetically, they're dead ends. And the inbreeding that runs through this population carries a real physical cost. The famous white tigers people pay to see aren't a rare subspecies at all. They're the product of deliberate inbreeding for a single color gene, and they frequently come out with crossed eyes, cleft palates, spinal defects, and shortened lives. So you have an animal that is expensive, dangerous, genetically mixed up, often unhealthy, and going to live about 2 decades, produced by the thousands or the hundreds, nobody's sure, for a photo op that lasts a few weeks. The danger radiates outward to the neighbors and to the first responders who have to face a loose tiger with a handgun and no training for it. But the deepest victim is the tiger itself, disoriented and displaced on a suburban street, an animal that was never wanted past infancy, standing in a world it can't survive in and can't be returned from. By now, you might be waiting for the part where the law fixes this, and there is one, and it sounds exactly like an ending. In December 2022, the federal Big Cat Public Safety Act was signed into law. It did the thing advocates had wanted for years. It banned private ownership of big cats as pets, and it banned public contact with them, which means it banned the cub petting photo sessions that were the whole financial engine. Lions, tigers, leopards, jaguars, cheetahs, cougars, and their hybrids. All of it. The front door slammed shut. If the story were simply about stopping the trade, that's the credits rolling. But read the fine print, because the fine print is the twist. The law did not require existing owners to give up their animals. It grandfathered them. Anyone who already had a big cat could keep it, as long as they registered the animal with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service by a single deadline, June 18th of 2023, exactly 180 days after the law was signed. Registration closed at the end of that day. And here is the catch. Registering an animal to keep it is not the same as building a system that tracks it. There was no requirement for ongoing inspection, no public database, no funding for anyone to go count what was out there. An owner who simply didn't register, who kept their tiger quietly and off the paperwork like so many always had, was now breaking federal law. But only if someone found out. And finding out still depends on the same thing it always did: the animal getting loose and being seen. So think about what the law actually did and didn't do. It cut off new supply, which matters enormously, and it ended the cub petting economy that drove the breeding. But every tiger already living behind chain link in Texas the day that law passed is still there, legally or quietly, for the rest of its natural life. The pipeline is closed. The room it filled is not empty. And the animals in it are, for the most part, still not on any list you or I could ever see. So put the corrected picture together. The headline was right about the cause and wrong about almost everything else. The exotic pet trade really is why tigers keep appearing in Texas. And Texas really is a hotspot, and the escapes really are happening. What the headline got wrong is the shape of it. This was never about a state overflowing with pampered pets, and it was never really about how many tigers there are, because that number has never been known. It's about a business that discovered you could turn a cub into cash for a few weeks and then walk away from the 500-pound problem it becomes, in a place built to let you do exactly that without anyone writing it down. And notice what this isn't. A tiger on a lawn isn't a monster hunting a neighborhood. It's a confused, poorly kept animal that got out of a bad enclosure and has nowhere in its instincts to put a subdivision. The threat is real, but it comes from the situation, not from some appetite for people. The very qualities that made a cub profitable, small, cute, harmless looking, sittable, are the same qualities the animal loses in a matter of months. And the loss of them is what puts a tiger on a lawn and a deputy on the grass in front of it with his hand shaking on a pistol. Which brings us back to that lawn, and the SUV pulling away. When you first saw it, it looked like a freak event, a one-in-a-million Texas oddity. It isn't. It's the most honest image we have of the whole system. The rare moment something engineered to stay invisible stepped into daylight, got filmed, and then drove off and vanished again before anyone could count it. India was found, and that felt like resolution. But India was one animal, on one street, that happened to be seen. The unease that should stay with you isn't the tiger you watched on the news for a week. It's the ones you didn't. Somewhere behind fences across the state are an unknown number of apex predators, produced for a photo and kept out of sight, waiting out 20-year lives that nobody ever planned to end and no list has ever held. The trade that made them has finally been shut down. The tigers it already made are still out there, and we still can't tell you how many.